Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Adam. Been born and raised in San Diego, 25 now. In contrast to hearing stories about people who just recently found out that they've had ASD, I've sort of known that I've had ASD like all my life, and so my life is a large portion of it has sort of been adapting to not that label, but like with the awareness of that label, trying to adapt to live my life as good as I can. It really all started like in elementary school, as it does for a lot of people. Starting kindergarten, talking with a lot of people and who I thought would be great friends, and then turns out not even a month in, all of a sudden they start they go from what I thought would be perfectly amicable people to calling me names, calling me weird, calling me this and that, and generally telling me that I'm not welcome with them, and that was a big shock to me. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't feel like I can do this. Yeah, so starts in kindergarten, starts with what I, like the interaction started out very good. I introduced myself to people, learned a lot of names, and then those people went from being very friendly to being complete, in less than a month. And that was a big shock to me. It's like, what am I doing that makes you all of a sudden not want to talk to me and not want to be around me? And they would call me like weird, they'd call me annoying, they'd call me a chatterbox because I wouldn't stop talking about things that I liked. And I just kind of like all throughout elementary school, it was like, why can other kids talk? Why can't I talk? Why is it that they're able to have a conversation but I'm not? There must be like some conspiracy against me, right? That don't allow Adam to talk, if you mention something, tell him to shut up, something like that. But then around fourth grade, actually, my fourth grade teacher, his brother actually was on the spectrum. And so he suggested to my mom, I think your son reminds me a lot of my brother who's on the spectrum, so maybe your son is also on the spectrum too. And before my fourth grade teacher talked, they were floating around ideas that I had like ADD or something like that, and I would be pulled out of like class to do a couple things. But so my fourth grade teacher suggested that, and then through some process that I can't really remember, going through Radies and through a couple other places, apparently I got a diagnosis on the school level, and ever since I got that, I started being I had very minimal intervention. I would sometimes be pulled out, and I'd go to this this place that, in hindsight, it was like for 3 or 4 of the kids, and we'd play board games. In hindsight, I'd say that was to work on social skills, but really, I only wanted to go there to play games. Like it was never like growing up. It never really dawned on me like what exactly. It was just like, oh, Asperger's, it's a cool label, it's a cool thing. It never really like kind of dawned on me like all the things that I was really doing, or like it never really. I thought I was perfectly fine. I thought I was perfectly normal. It never really dawned on me that I was weird. I just thought everyone else was weird. No, I'm not weird. You guys are weird. So and it kind of continued on like that all the way up until middle school. Though in middle school, the bullying got a lot worse. It got to the point of where like people wouldn't even like like in elementary school is really cool because like kids they're very blunt and they'll tell you everything, right? But as soon as you start getting into middle school, kids start to learn, oh, you can't be upfront with people, now you gotta, right? So in middle school, the bullying went from, oh, you're annoying to this, to kids talking behind your back right in front of you. And yeah, so but then last year of middle school, I don't exactly remember what happened, but all I remember was having a concerning talk with my mom, and then just kind of feeling like very angry and very hurt after that conversation, and just kind of, you know, sat in a not so great place for a couple days. And while I was just doing that, I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna figure out what's making me so weird, I'm gonna figure out what's making me so abnormal, and I'm gonna do what I can to learn. I'm gonna do what I can to you know, to be as normal as I can. No more autism, no more any of this. Even though I don't understand what this label is, I'm gonna embrace the fact that people tell me I'm weird. I'm gonna say, you know, I've been, my whole life I've been saying, no, you're weird, no, weird, no, you're weird. I'm normal, but instead I'll reverse the rhetoric. This time I'll say I'm weird and you're normal, right? So once I kind of got out of that dark place, and I went to another dark place where I kind of just sat around and sort of played videos in my head, memories of interactions, memories of things, and just tried to figure out what is it exactly I'm doing? What is it exactly that I'm doing that's causing kids to not want to hang around me or to talk with me? And I came up with, like, after those 4 days, I came up with like this really long list of like 40 rules for myself. And I tried to follow them like as good as I can. Like I always try to remind myself every time I would go in any conversation to, like, you know, don't roar, don't stim, always look person in the eye, don't talk too much, you know. A good like 80% of the rules were things not to do. And so you can imagine that's a little foreshadowing to some of the issues that would cause. But so I stuck to the rules for as good as I can through my last year of middle school, and I had some success. I remember, you know, I was at the park and there was this kid, you know, he was playing on a little handheld game console, and I was just like, okay, go up to him, you know, give yourself some space, look him in the eye every now and then, comment on what he's doing, let him talk, comment on what he's talking about, don't say anything more, let him speak. And I just remember thinking after that, wow, he didn't call me weird, he didn't call me, that was a successful conversation. But unfortunately, my success was fairly short-lived. A lot of the thinking that I was using to sort of motivate myself was very sort of self-deprecating and very hateful to myself. You know, we're all human, we can't all follow rules completely, right? And so I started getting very angry at myself for not following these rules 100% of the time, for still, like, you know, for still doing things that were weird. And like there was this one girl who, you know, I thought I was doing well, and then she just told me, oh, you're weird, you're totally off, and that just like completely shattered me, and I just kind of like started keeping to myself. So that was that, and finally I went to high school, and I just was so terrified. Like I just didn't want to, like, oh, if I go up to these people, it's gonna be middle school all over again, right? Oh, if I go up to these people, it's gonna be middle school all over again. So I just didn't really want to like go up and talk to people. Eventually I found a group, and that was because I joined band, and that was a very great thing for me. What really, though unfortunately, I really had to kind of step out of my comfort zone a lot, and I really had to experiment with weird social things, because that's what you have to do in band. All the people in there are weird. And that social group kind of lasted me all through high school, though I would kind of go through these cycles where I'd be like super social, but then the fear of, oh, it's gonna be middle school all over again would come over me, and then I'd shrink back, and then I would come out again and I'd shrink back, and people actually noticed that, and they started thinking, is Adam like bipolar or something? Or like, is Adam okay mentally or something? So, and I didn't find out that until later. So that got me through. But then I was kind of like, as I was nearing my graduation, I had a little fear in the back of my mind, and that was that, you know, I was successful here in making friends. I was successful in getting this friend group. Am I gonna be that successful in you know, college or whatever? Am I gonna do that big group? And I was fearful because, yes, I made a friend group in high school, but that fear of not wanting to go up to people was still there, and that fear of, it's funny because I used to approach people all the time, and now it came to I don't want to approach people at all. But that fear eventually, yeah, it was like, okay, so I'm only able to talk with people I've already talked to. If I go to this new place with people I've never talked to before, I'm not going to talk to them because I don't know them, and because I don't know them, I'm not going to talk to them because I'm not going to talk to them, I'm not going to know them, etc., etc. I'm going to end up frontless. And that fear kind of bore fruit all throughout college. I didn't really go up to people because I was just too fearful of, you know, middle school all over again. I even joined band, and, you know, I had a lot of, you know, when we went to college parties and, you know, we would drink and all that, I would tell the band people all the time, you know, how afraid I was, how I, you know, and they'd always encourage me, right? You know, like, oh, you're fine, you're not weird, you're totally fine, you're not gonna, but I always had that thing in the back of my mind, like, they're saying that, but as soon as I come out of my shell, guess what's gonna happen, right? Middle school all over again. And so, yeah, I just kind of stuck to a shell, and I've kind of been in that shell ever since. And unfortunately, I've kind of, my social experience up until now has been, if I don't stick to some sort of script, if I don't stick to some sort of, you know, like, you know, at work, you know exactly what to talk about, right? If you're meeting people for the first time, you know exactly what to talk about, right? But as soon as you go into more casual, where there's like no more scripts, it's like almost like a free-for-all. So, but my experience has been, is like, once we sort of go into that free-for-all mode, if I start to be myself, if I start to go out there, if I start to take social risks and, you know, tell jokes and things like that, eventually that will lead to outright rejection, outright, yeah, so I've just kind of, I would like to be social again, and I would like to, but at this point in time, I'm just so afraid, and I just don't want to be hurt, that I'm just like, you know, whatever. So, yeah, and I mean, again, you know, if it's like, if I'm meeting people for the first time, if I'm talking to people for the first time, it's easy, you know, there's social scripts you can follow. If I'm at work, it's super easy. I know who I can approach, I know who I can talk to, I know what I can talk about. It's very easy to tell, you know, whether I have permission to come to talk to you or not. But then if it's a casual setting, then all of that goes out the window. It's like, so, you know, like I mean, like I've recently joined a church group for young adults, and I remember kind of seeing everybody like going around and mingling and talking together, and I'm just like, and I kind of just sat in the corner like, I can't penetrate this at all. I can't dive into this at all, because, yeah, so it's weird. I went from being very sociable, very chatterboxy, to trying to learn and trying to conform to rules and being able to really, you know, to you know, and having mild success to that, to being so socially anxious that I can't even talk with people anymore outside of very structured contexts. So it's weird how far that, how